I had just managed to get my daughter to sleep when my phone rang. It was my mom, Brenda, sobbing like she was at a funeral. "Sarah, your father posted 10 photos of Lily on Facebook this month, but only one of me. Does he think that Brad is more important than his own wife?" I rubbed my temples, feeling a migraine. "Coming on, Mom. Jesus Christ, it was a kindergarten assignment. Stop overthinking it." Not even 5 minutes later, she called again. "I just checked the credit card statement. Your dad spent twice as much on Lily as he did on me. Don't bring the kid over next month." I can't look at her without feeling sick. "Fine," I said, barely holding back a scream. "Whatever. Honestly, it's my dad. Who's going to be pissed about not seeing his precious granddaughter? Not me." I finally drifted off to sleep, only to be jolted awake by a ringtone loud enough to wake the dead. "Sarah, I can't sleep." Brenda's voice was manic. "You need to arrange a marriage for Lily tomorrow. Find her a fiancé. Once she belongs to another family, your dad won't be able to get his hands on her." My brain short-circuited. I finally snapped, screaming into the phone. "Are you seriously competing with a 5-year-old right now? She's a baby and arranged marriage? What is this, the dark ages? If you can't sleep, go pop a Xanax and leave me alone." I hung up thinking my anger would shut her up. Brenda usually plays the role of the fragile, submissive housewife. I didn't think she'd actually do anything crazy. I was wrong. The next morning my phone was blown up with 999 plus notifications. WeChat was frozen from the sheer volume of her spam. My anxiety spiked. Brenda is 50 and has high blood pressure. If she stayed up all night raging, she might actually stroke out. I called her back immediately. I heard sobbing on the other end. "Sarah, are you just like your father? Now that you have Lily, you don't give a shit about me anymore. I poured my heart out to you all night, and you didn't reply once." I brushed my teeth, trying to keep my voice steady. "Mom, unlike you, some of us haven't retired yet. I have a job. Even Lily has to go to preschool." "Lily, Lily, Lily. It's always about her," Brenda screeched. "I get it now in your heart. Your mother means nothing compared to that girl." I rolled my eyes so hard it hurt. Ever since I gave birth, Brenda's pick-me syndrome flared up. She was terrified that a toddler was going to steal her spotlight. She started rambling, her voice dripping with venom. "You know how your father is. He attracts women like flies to shit. When he was a teacher, those college sluts were throwing themselves at him. I'm telling Lily to stay away from him for her." Own good rage boiled in my chest. "Mom, do you really want to bring up the past? That student went to Dad's office for math help. You were the one who stormed in, screaming that they were banging on the desk. You cost him his job. You made me a laughingstock at school. That was the darkest time of my childhood. Thank God my dad, David, had a spine. He proved his innocence, quit teaching, started a business, and became a semi-famous CEO. Otherwise, our family would have been ruined." Brenda went quiet, probably remembering how she had to beg on her knees to stop David from divorcing her back then. But she doubled down on her twisted logic. "Sarah, I really think finding a rich husband for Lily now is smart. Dealing with the elites, you gotta lock it down early. It builds character. Plus, if Lily is spoken for, no other men, including your father, will get any funny ideas." It all boiled down to her sick fantasy that my dad wanted to sleep with my daughter. I watched Lily wash her face and smile at me in the mirror. A pure, innocent angel. My heart turned cold. "Stay the hell away from my daughter's love life. If you mention this again, I'm telling Dad, and let's see if he finally divorces you." Brenda screamed, cursing me out, calling me an ungrateful brat who threatens her own mother. I hung up, hugged Lily, and kissed her soft cheek. I dropped her off at the prestigious private preschool and went to work. But around 3 p.m., I got a call from the teacher. "Mrs. Sarah is your mother. Mrs. Brenda Song. She's here with a strange man, and she's hysterical. She's trying to forcibly take Lily. You need to come now." My heart hammered against my ribs. I abandoned my meeting and sped to the school. At the gate, a crowd of parents was watching Brenda wail, snot and tears running down her face. "You don't understand. My daughter doesn't care if this child gets molested," Brenda shouted to the horrifyingly captivated audience. "I told her the kid sits on my husband's lap, kissing him. It's unnatural. She's grooming him. Why would you let a woman like that raise a child? She should be given away." She was publicly accusing my father of incest, and my 5-year-old of being a seductress. The crowd whispered. The teacher tried to intervene. "Ma'am, please calm down. It's normal for grandparents to hug children. We cannot release the child to anyone but the parents. I am her grandmother. I wouldn't hurt her." Brenda lunged for Lily. Lily screamed, terrified, hiding behind the teacher's legs. "I'm taking her. Call the cops." "I don't care. She's my blood." Brenda looked demonic. I sprinted over and snatched Lily into my arms. Mom, we're discussing this at home. I hissed, shaking with adrenaline. If you have a problem with Dad, talk to him. But Lily is never getting engaged. I forced a smile at the teacher and quickly Venmoed her $200. I am so sorry for the scene. Thank you for protecting her. I carried a sobbing Lily to the car. As I started the engine, Brenda threw herself onto the hood of my car, then slid down, sitting dramatically on the asphalt. Are you insane? I yelled out the window. I could have killed you, then run me over. Brenda howled. She saw people filming on their phones and turned her performance up to 11. My life is meaningless. Since this little vixen was born, my husband only cares about her. He bought her a gold necklace for her birthday. We've been married 40 years and I never got a gold ring. We were broke back then. And Dad tried to buy you one last year, and you threw it away. I screamed back. She ignored me, grabbing a stranger's phone and shoving the camera into Lily's tear-streaked face. Look at her. This is the little home wrecker leading her grandpa on. And her mother is helping her. The Sioux women are all whores. I slapped the phone out of her hand and covered Lily's face with my jacket. Why do you hate her so much? She is your granddaughter. Why are you doing this? Brenda looked at me, her eyes glazed with madness. He whispered low enough so only I could hear. This house only needs one woman. Me. I felt my blood freeze. It was always like this. In Brenda's world, being female was a sin. I was her competition. Lily was her competition. I remembered when I was a kid. Dad bought me a doll. Brenda hid needles inside the stuffing. So I'd prick my fingers and bleed. Then she laughed and told me not to take gifts for men. I looked at this monster. Fine. You want to be the only one? I disown you. Lily isn't your granddaughter anymore. Congrats, Brenda. You win. You're alone. My dad and my husband, Mark, were in Europe on a confidential business trip. It was a massive deal that would move us up a tax bracket. They had been radio silent for days. Feeling uneasy, I dropped Lily off at my best friend's house and went back to my parents' villa to pack some of my things. The front door was wide open. In the living room, Brenda was circling a pile of burning yellow paper with 3 strange men. They were splashing what looks like dog blood over Lily's favorite princess dress and her baby bowl. It was a ritual, an occult ritual. I rushed in and kicked the burning pile over. The hell are you doing? Brenda smiled at me, a creepy, fawning smile. Sweetie, I thought about it. I was wrong. Let's not tell your dad about the school. I didn't arrange a marriage for her, he said casually. The Miller family's grandson. You know, the one that died of an overdose last week. They wanted a ghost bride to keep him company in the afterlife. I gagged. I found a shaman, he said. Once Lily is spiritually bound to a dead soul, she won't be able to seduce living men anymore. Your dad will only have eyes for me. It's a win-win. Just a small favor for your mom. The Miller family representative, a greasy man named Carl, smirked and kicked a duffel bag of cash toward me. Our young master liked your girl. Consider this, the dowry. The ashes on the floor flared up with an unnatural green flame. Get out, I whispered, grabbing a chainsaw my dad used for gardening. Get the hell out before I massacre every single one of you. Rude, Brenda scoffed. You complain when I find her a living husband. You complain when I bind her to a dead one. You just want her to sleep with my husband, don't you? She is 5. I roared, revving the chainsaw. They scrambled out. But as Carl left, he muttered loud enough for me to hear. Doesn't matter. The binding is done. Kid won't live past the week. Just as I dropped to my knees, weeping in the mess of blood and ash, my phone rang. The phone screen illuminated the ash-covered floor, vibrating violently against a puddle of whatever sick concoction Brenda had poured over my daughter's belongings. The caller ID flashed. Chloe. I dropped the chainsaw. It hit the hardwood with a heavy, dead thud. My hands were shaking so violently I had to swipe the screen 3 times before the call connected. Chloe? My voice was a hollow rasp. Sarah? Sarah, where are you? Chloe's voice was sheer, unadulterated panic. The kind of sound that rips the air from your lungs. You need to get to St. Jude's Hospital. Now. What? What happened? I don't know. We were just coloring and she said she felt sleepy. Then she started shivering and… Sarah, she's blue. Her lips are blue, and she won't wake up. The paramedics are working on her now. I didn't hear the rest. The phone slipped from my grip. The kid won't live past the week. Carl's greasy voice echoed in the silent, smoke-filled living room. It wasn't a curse. You don't pay a family a duffel bag full of cash for a superstitious prayer. You pay them for murder. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. The burning rage that had fueled me all day suddenly condensed into something absolute, freezing, and lethal. I picked up my phone, grabbed the heavy duffel bag of cash from the floor, and bolted for the door. I broke every traffic law getting to the hospital. By the time I sprinted through the sliding glass doors of the ER, my shoes squeaking on the sterile linoleum, a nurse was already intercepting me. Chloe was slumped in a waiting chair, weeping openly. "Sarah Song?" the doctor asked, stepping out of the swinging double doors. His face was grim. "Are you the mother?"
Yes.
"Where is she? What's wrong with her?" "We've stabilized her, but barely. She's in a comatose state. Her heart rate plummeted, and her respiratory drive almost completely failed. It mimics a severe opioid overdose, but a standard tox screen isn't matching up perfectly. Has she been exposed to any heavy medications? Fentanyl? Experimental analgesics?" My mind snapped back to the preschool. Brenda lunging at Lily. Lily screaming. Brenda's hand wildly grabbing at the back of Lily's neck before the teacher pulled them apart. I wouldn't hurt her. She's my blood. And before that, when I was a kid,
The doll.
the needles Brenda had hidden in the stuffing to make me bleed. Check the back of her neck. I choked out, grabbing the doctor's scrubs. Or her scalp. Under the hair.
Please.
Look for a puncture wound. A needle mark. The doctor blinked, taken aback by my intensity, but nodded sharply and hurried back through the doors. 10 minutes later, he returned. He looked sick. "You were right. There's a micropuncture at the base of her hairline. We're running a mass spectrometry test now, but if this is a synthetic designer drug, Mrs. Song, we need to know what she was injected with to counter the specific organ damage it's doing, or her liver will fail by morning." The Miller family's grandson died of an overdose last week. They used whatever killed their degenerate son to kill my daughter, ensuring they died the same way. A match set for the afterlife. I walked away from the doctor, pulling my phone from my pocket. I dialed my husband, Mark. It rang once.
Twice.
On the third ring, the European dial tone clicked off. "Hey, babe." Mark's exhausted but warm voice came through. "We just finished the merger meeting. Your dad and I were just talking about calling."
Mark.
My voice didn't sound like my own. It sounded dead. "Sarah? What's wrong? Are you crying?" "Listen to me very carefully. You need to tell my father that his wife tried to murder our daughter." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. I could hear the background noise of a high-end Parisian restaurant. Then, the sound of a chair violently scraping against the floor. "What did you just say?" Mark's voice dropped an octave, the warmth instantly evaporating into a terrifying coldness. I told him about the school, the needle, the ritual in the living room, and the Miller family. I spoke fast and clipped clinical sentences because if I stopped to feel anything, I would shatter. "We need the chemical compound, Mark. Lily's liver is failing. The police will take too long to get a warrant for the Millers. They're billionaires. They'll hide behind lawyers while my baby dies." I heard my father's voice in the background, sharp and demanding. Mark related. Then, the phone was snatched from Mark's hand. "Sarah." My father, David. The man who built an empire from the ashes of a ruined teaching career. His voice wasn't shaking. It was a glacier. "Is my granddaughter breathing?" "Barely, Dad. They need the poison's name. I am chartering a private jet right now. We will be wheels down in 8 hours. But you don't have 8 hours." My father paused. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the phone as he casually smashed a crystal tumbler on a table somewhere in Europe. The Miller family. Richard Miller's clan. Their youngest, Seth, died of a proprietary cocktail. Some underground designer opioid the elites are playing with. Richard has the formula because he paid off the coroner to keep it out of the papers. "How do I get it, Dad?" "I'll kill them. I swear to God. I will burn their house down." "You don't have to," David said, his voice dripping with a terrifying corporate malice. "You're going to walk into the Miller estate. You're going to ask for Richard. When his guards try to stop you, you put him on the phone with me. I hold the debt on their offshore shell companies. I can bankrupt his entire bloodline with 3 phone calls. Go get the formula, Mark, and I will handle your mother." I hung up. I looked at Chloe, who was staring at me in horror. "Stay with her," I ordered. I walked out to my car. I opened the trunk. Inside was the duffel bag of cash Carl had kicked at me and a heavy, iron tire iron. I grabbed both. The Miller estate was a sprawling, gated monstrosity in the hills. The iron gates were wrought with Gothic ivy, and 2 private security guards stood at the entrance. It was almost midnight. I slammed my car into park right in front of the gates, blocking the driveway. I got out, dragging the duffel bag.
"Hey."
"You can't park there." One of the guards barked, unsnapping the holster of his taser as he approached the gate. I didn't say a word. I unzipped the duffel bag, grabbed a thick stack of $100 bills, and shoved it through the iron bars. It fell to the concrete. "That's for the funeral," I said, my voice dead flat. "Open the gate, or I'm driving my car through it." "Lady, you need to back up." I pulled out my phone and dialed the number my father had just texted me. It rang once before a gruff, arrogant voice answered. "Who the hell is calling this number? Richard Miller?" I asked, putting it on speaker. Who is this? I'm David Song's daughter. And my father would like a word. I hit merge. My dad's voice blasted through the speaker, cutting through the damp night air like a scythe. Richard, if those gates aren't open in 5 seconds, I am triggering the default clauses on the Cayman accounts. Your shipping lines will be seized by the SEC before sunrise. There was a suffocating silence on the line. Then, Richard's panicked voice. David? What the hell is going on? What are you talking about? For seconds, my father said softly, open the gates. Richard screamed into the phone. The guards scrambled, hitting the console. The heavy iron slowly swung inward. I marched up the winding driveway, the tire iron heavy in my right hand. The front doors of the mansion were already open. Richard Miller, an aging man with a bloated face and a silk robe, stood in the foyer. Beside him was Carl, the greasy occultist who had delivered the cash. Carl's face drained of color when he saw me. What is the meaning of this? Richard demanded, though his eyes darted nervously to my phone. Your dead junkie son, I said, stepping into his multi-million-dollar foyer, tracking mud onto his Persian rug. You bought my 5-year-old daughter to be his ghost bride. Carl here, and my psychotic mother, injected her with the same drug your son overdosed on so they could die a matching pair. Richard whipped around to stare at Carl. You told me the girl was terminally ill. You said the family was volunteering her because they couldn't afford the medical bills. Carl took a step back, raising his hands. Mr. Miller, I found a willing grandmother. She wanted the girl gone. It was a clean deal. I swung the tire iron. It caught Carl right in the kneecap. The loud crack echoed off the vaulted ceilings. Carl went down screaming, clutching his leg as blood instantly began to pool through his khaki pants. Richard yelled and stumbled back. I don't care about your deals. I stepped over Carl, pointing the bloody tip of the iron at Richard's chest. My daughter is in organ failure. What is the chemical compound? What did Seth take? It's carfentanil mixed with a synthetic paralyzer, Richard stammered, pulling a piece of paper from a valet drawer with trembling hands. The coroner wrote it down. The paralyzer masks the opioid receptors.
Please.
I didn't know it was murder. I just wanted my boy to have peace. I snatched the paper from his hand. I took a picture of it and sent it immediately to the doctor at St. Jude's. If she dies, I whispered, leaning in so close Richard could smell the sweat and ash on me, my father won't just take your money. My husband and I will take your lives. I walked out, leaving Carl screaming on the floor. The drive back to the hospital was a blur of neon lights and static radio. When I burst back into the ICU, the doctor was already prepping the counteragents. We got the text, he said, moving fast. It's a bizarre compound, but with this formula, we can flush it. We're administering the targeted antagonist now. I collapsed against the glass wall of the ICU room. For the next 6 hours, I watched a machine breathe for my little girl. I watched the poison fight the cure. I watched her pale, lifeless face, tracing the lines of her chubby cheeks through the glass, praying to every god I didn't believe in. Around 7 a.m., the rhythmic, horrifying beep of the monitors changed. The sharp spikes softened. The doctor stepped out, pulling off his mask. He looked exhausted, but he smiled. Her vitals are stabilizing. The liver enzymes are dropping. She's going to make it, Sarah. She's going to wake up. I slid down the glass wall until I hit the floor, burying my face in my knees, and finally, for the first time since yesterday, I wept. I wept until I couldn't breathe. 2 hours later, heavy footsteps echoed down the hospital corridor. I looked up to see Mark and my father. They looked like they had stepped out of a war zone despite wearing bespoke suits. Mark dropped to his knees, wrapping his arms around me, burying his face in my neck, shaking. My father stood over us. He looked through the glass at Lily, who was now sleeping naturally, a faint flush of pink returning to her cheeks. David Song's face was unreadable. It was a mask of pure, calculated execution. Is she safe? Dad asked quietly. Yes, I whispered. She's going to be okay. Dad slowly nodded. He adjusted his cuffs. Stay with her. Do not leave this hospital. I have business at home. Dad, I called out as he turned.
He stopped.
What are you going to do? He looked back at me. There was no warmth in his eyes, only a 40-year marriage that had just been dragged out back and shot. I am going to amputate an infection. I didn't witness what happened at the villa, but the security cameras and Mark, who insisted on going with him, told me everything later. Brenda was in the master bedroom. She hadn't fled. In her twisted, delusional mind, the deed was done. The competition was eliminated. She truly believed that with Lily dead and me out of the picture, David would return from Europe, comfort his grieving wife, and finally give her the undivided worship she believed she was owed. She was sitting at her vanity, brushing her hair. She had put on her expensive perfume. She was wearing a silk slip, something she hadn't worn in a decade. When the front door opened, she ran to the top of the stairs, her face lit up with a grotesque, girlish excitement. David. Oh, darling, you're home early, she cooed, floating down the stairs. I've been so distraught. The most terrible thing happened with Sarah's little girl. She stopped. My father stood in the foyer. Behind him weren't his luggage handlers. It was Mark, looking at her with a hatred so deep it could burn through steel, and two uniformed police officers. Brenda's smile faltered, but her delusions held strong. David? Why are the police here? Did Sarah call them? That ungrateful brat. She's been having a mental breakdown, David. She's making up lies about me. My father didn't raise his voice. He didn't scream like she wanted him to. He simply pulled a stack of papers from his breast pocket and dropped them onto the marble floor. Those are divorce papers, Dad said, his voice flat. I've already signed them. My lawyers are liquidating our joint accounts. You will not see a single penny. The house is in my name, and you are trespassing. Brenda stared at the papers, her brain misfiring. Divorce? David, no.
Why?
The child is gone. It's just us now. I did this for us. She was seducing you. She was going to take you away from me, just like those college sluts. She rushed forward, trying to grab his arm. Dad stepped back as if she were made of radioactive waste. You put a needle in a 5-year-old's neck, Dad said, the venom finally slipping into his tone. My granddaughter. Because you are a sick, pathetic, empty shell of a human being. I spent 40 years trying to fix you, Brenda. I gave up my career because of your paranoia. I built an empire so you would feel secure. But you're not just insecure. You're evil.
No.
I'm your wife. Brenda shrieked, the fragile housewife facade shattering into complete hysteria. She threw herself onto the floor, clawing at his Italian leather shoes. I'm the only woman who matters. She's a whore, David. Sarah is a whore, and her daughter is a whore. I saved you. Dad looked at the officers. Arrest her. As the cops stepped forward and grabbed Brenda's arms, hauling her up, she snapped. The high blood pressure, the sleepless nights of raging mania, the sheer collapse of her psychotic reality, it all cascaded at once. She screamed, a high-pitched, inhuman sound, thrashing so violently it took both officers to pin her against the wall to cuff her. You can't do this. I am the matriarch. I am the only one, she wailed, her eyes rolling wildly. Spit flew from her lips. I'll kill her. I'll finish the ritual. The ghost wants her. Take her out of my house, Dad said, turning his back on her. They dragged her out. The neighbors who had watched her perform on the hood of my car at the preschool now stood on their lawns, watching the wealthy, elegant Brenda song get shoved into the back of a squad car, frothing at the mouth in a silk slip. 3 months later, the autumn wind whipped through the park. I pushed Lily on the swing, her laughter ringing out, bright and clear. The color was fully back in her cheeks. The tiny, microscopic scar at her hairline was the only physical reminder of the nightmare. Higher, Mommy. Higher, she giggled, kicking her little light-up sneakers into the air. Hold on tight. I smiled, giving her a gentle push. Mark walked up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist and resting his chin on my shoulder. Dad just texted. The court proceedings are finished. I leaned back into him, watching Lily soar. And Carl took a plea deal. Testified against the Millers. Richard and his wife are facing 20 years for conspiracy and manslaughter. They linked the drugs to 3 other overdoses in their son's circle. As for Brenda, Mark hesitated, saying her name. Tell me, I said quietly. Unfit to stand trial. The psychiatrist said her narcissistic personality disorder evolved into full-blown paranoid schizophrenia. She's been remanded to the state psychiatric facility. Indefinitely. I felt a strange emptiness. Not sadness. Not grief. Just the hollow relief of a tumor finally being excised. Brenda had spent her entire life viewing every woman, even her own flesh and blood, as a threat to her existence. In the end, she had locked herself in a prison of her own making long before the state ever gave her a padded room. I heard she spends her days sitting in the corner of the rec room, whispering to the walls that she is a queen, waiting for a king who doesn't even know she exists anymore. Dad's selling the villa, Mark added softly. He bought that little cottage by the lake. Says he wants to retire for real this time. Learn to fish. Teach Lily how to build sandcastles without worrying about the carpets. A genuine smile broke across my face. He'd better. She's expecting a grandmaster builder. I stepped forward, catching the swing as it came down, and scooped Lily up into my arms. She squealed, wrapping her small, warm arms tightly around my neck. I buried my face in her hair, breathing in the scent of baby shampoo and fresh autumn air. She was safe. We were safe. The dark ages were over, and the monsters were finally locked away where they belonged.